Yes, we are live. Welcome to another session of our Thursday Live on YouTube with me, Dr. Jen. Hello. If you're just joining here for the first time, I am Dr. Jen Diboti. I am a parenting coach and the founder of the Purposeful Parent Academy and Parenting with Dr. Jen. Every Thursday, we are here every Thursday for insightful, engaging, and knowledge, wisdom packed sessions on purposeful parenting. And today we're going to be having yet another one. If you're just here for the first time, I'd like to hear from you in the comments. Where are you joining me from? I'm sure we have so many parents who are rushing here from the Purposeful Parents WhatsApp platforms who are always eager to learn and always eager to know more. And yes, I'm excited to have you join here today. Today, we're talking about when lying becomes a habit, do's and don'ts that every parent must know. If you're here with me, please let someone else know to join you. Invite someone to join you here. This is a topic I believe every single parent needs to learn about. It's a very, very important topic that concerns not just parents, but anyone that works with children. Because I believe that we can raise, preserve the next generation when we understand how to address simple things, right? Yeah, lying, I can call it a simple thing, but it's something that can cause a lot of distress for many people. And because of the distress that lying can cause, it usually provokes a very harsh reaction from parents, from caregivers. But not just that, lying is not something that you want to overlook because it can significantly hurt your child's identity, hurt their relationships. It's not a habit you want any child or anyone whatsoever to develop as they grow. So this is a very important topic that concerns every single one you know. So please invite someone right on the platform. If you're on any of my platforms, please go there, write that we are live. Encourage someone else to join us here. The network is great. If you've been following me, then you must have witnessed the fact that we've been struggling for quite a while because the network has been a mess. But I'm so happy. Today is a bright day. We're having a stable network connection and we are able to stream seamlessly. Great. So I'm going to be talking to you today about um, lying, the habit of lying, or even just looking at lying when it first begins, right? Think back at the very first lie your child told. If you're here as a parent, can you remember the first lie your child told? How silly it was, right? And some parents think that lying is something that a child is born with. That's not true. We're going to look at how lying begins and why lying even begins in the first place, what it begins as. Because if you've been following me for a while, then you must have heard me say that purposeful parenting is all about having a why for your how. Why do you do what you do? The why dictates the how. Because when you understand why certain things happen, you're going to understand why your approach cannot afford to be anyhow. You can't afford to just address different behaviors you see from your child by just doing whatever you can per time. When you do it that way, you're obviously going to do certain things that will be destructive, right? Would hurt your child or will harm their potential. So today we're going to look at all about lying, right? We're going to go to through every angle, look at it from different angles, and then address what you should be doing, but also what you need to avoid doing when it comes to dealing with this very upsetting behavior. Great. So remember, I asked earlier, can you remember your child's first lie? Can you remember the first lie, your child told? Or if you're not a parent, think about the first lie you ever heard, a very young child, maybe 3 years old, the first lie they told. For example, you keep biscuits somewhere and then a child of 3 years old picks it up, eats up the biscuit, and then you ask, who ate my biscuits? And the child says, it's not me. But you have crumbs all over the child's face and mouth. In fact, there's every evidence that points to the fact that this is the culprit. This is the person who took whatever it is that you kept. So at the starting point, lies are usually silly. Sometimes you might even find yourself laughing at the lie and being very casual with it, which is understandable because, like I said, when lying first begins, it usually seems very trivial, usually seems very silly. They tell foolish lies, right? They tell lies that uh, then I don't know, you can't even really consider them as something that would really cause any damage because they seem so harmless. They do it in such a cute way, right? Because the evidence is all there and you can see that the child is lying. So most parents will laugh it off. But the thing with lying is, even though it starts off, jokingly, when you don't address it properly, when you don't address it in the right way, when you don't know how to handle it, it grows. It grows. And lying is something that every single one of us has had their fair share of experience with. Okay, so when you look at adults today and a person you can call honest, it doesn't necessarily mean that they never ever get to tell a single lie. It just means that this person has an understanding. Can you hear me? I hope that you can all hear me. Please let me know if you can hear me. I seem to be having some distress calls. Okay, great. Sorry, it's not about me. Great. So I can be heard. Please let me know if you can hear me. If we're streaming smoothly, I think I can be heard. Great. All right. So I was saying that so when lying first begins, though it might start jokingly, it's not something that you want to take, lying down. Yes, you don't want to attack your child, but it can grow. It does grow when you don't understand how to address it, or when you make certain mistakes that actually add fuel to the fire. All right. So lying, the first lie a child tells, yes, we might find ourselves laughing about it, but then when the child tells the second, third, fourth, fifth lie, usually the parent starts panicking, the parent starts being scared, the parent starts seeing far ahead into the future. Hey, my child could become a liar, this child could become a liar, this child could become a dishonest person. And because lying can be so unsettling, even from a child, that's usually what causes parents to overreact, to commit those mistakes that end up worsening the habit that started so innocently. And it's understandable why a parent will panic, because no one wants their child to be dishonest, no one wants their child to be a liar, or because we do understand the consequences of lying. And if this child does not quit or desist from this habit, we all understand what could happen, right? You know that you can see already what would happen if this child does not give up the habit. And that frustration, that fear from the parent, the panic you feel when your child keeps telling those lies actually might push you to instead make mistakes that would worsen it. So the fear, the panic is not the right place from which to address this behavior. It's not the right place to address it from. Because usually when you're acting out of fear, out of panic, out of frustration, those emotions will not really allow you to approach any subject, in the best way. Because the tendency for you to overreact and to overdo it is there because of the emotions. So yes, the lie is going to unsettle you, is going to shock you, is going to cause you to panic. But remember that dealing with such a critical behavior from your lack of control over those emotions would not help the situation. Right? So this panic, this fear, all these, big negative emotions are what usually push parents to instead make mistakes that worsen the situation. Now, what might interest you to know is the fact that lying starts as a part of a child's development. Lying is a developmental milestone. It starts as part of development. Every single child is going to tell their first lie around age 3 to 4, depending on when communication begins. Every child is going to tell their first lie around age 3 to 4 as a part of their development. So it starts as a developmental milestone. It starts as the child realizing that they can bend reality. They can see something as blue and they call it red, even though it's not red. So it starts as a part of the child, hitting a milestone where their brain has developed to the point where they realize that they can think thoughts that you cannot access, right? That they can think thoughts that are different from what you can see. They can actually know one thing and tell you another. So that's how it starts. It starts with your child just, hitting that milestone where they make that realization that, hey, I can actually see a pencil and call it a stick, or I can see, a cup and call it a plate. So that's why the line starts off so silly. It starts off so pointless. Sometimes the child tells a lie and you're like, I don't even understand why the child is lying. There's no need to lie. And because it's part of development, it starts off innocently, almost as if the child is still, learning to walk. That's the same way the line begins. It starts very silly, it starts very easy to pick up. But if you realize that yes, it starts that way, but then it begins to develop. Especially the day the child will tell a lie that finally gets you to believe them, and then you later realize that it was a lie. Usually that's the day that you get your first heartbreak with that child. When the child successfully tells you a lie, and then you believe it. You don't even suspect that this could be a lie, and then you end up finding out that, hey, this was a lie. That's where the real panic starts. So initially when they start off and it's so foolish and they tell lies that are very easy to uncover, some parents just laugh it off. Many parents just brush it off and say, you know, some overreact even at that point, which is a big mistake. But then the moment the child perfects it to the point where they tell a lie and then you believe it, that's where the panic really, really begins. I'd like to hear from you in the comments. What was if you have several kids, what was your experience? What has been your experience with lies telling at the starting stage, at the beginning phases where the child is still telling very foolish lies? And when you first realize that, hey, this thing is growing into something else. All right. So lying is a developmental milestone. It starts off as part of development when the child realizes that other people don't know what they know. So they can actually choose to tell you something different from what they know. That's how it starts. That is how it starts. And there are different kinds of lies that children tell. So it starts as part of creativity and imagination, usually, where the child can go to a birthday party, come back and tell you something that was not there. And that's just a part of them being imaginative. That's not so at the onset of lies telling, deceit is not the goal. Malicious intent is not the goal. This is one thing you must remember. Okay, at the starting point of lies telling, when a child tells their first set of lies, deceit is not their intent. All right, it's them. The more active the child's imagination, the more the tendency for them to tell lies and become more creative with it. So at the start of lies telling, deceit, the child's intent is not to deceive you. When you say, who took the biscuit, the child is not trying to deceive you. The child has just hit a milestone where they are able to use their brain in a different way. That's how it starts. That's why panic and fear and all those, exaggerated things that some parents do at this point is not necessary. Many parents are going to start giving the child a serious beating when they tell their first lie, which is a big mistake, as we're going to see ahead. So there are different kinds of lies. When children start off with lying, they tell lies. They could tell lies just to explore what's going to happen. What will happen if I tell mama that this pen, this thing is red, even though it's blue? So they are telling the lie to see your reaction. How does it? Are you able to detect that I'm lying? Does it upset, my mom? Does it upset my dad? Does it upset other people when I tell lies? So it's usually exploratory at the beginning. They are learning. They're learning about themselves. They're learning about others. And then the next part of it, another kind of lie that you're going to see at the beginning is just imaginative lies, where a child, like I said earlier, will go to a birthday party and tell you that, some big man came there and gave things, something that just did not even happen. But the child will fit it into the story just to make it more interesting. So the more imaginative, the more creative a child, the more you're going to see this particular kind of lie where they are imagining things that did not happen. They tell you stories that never ever happened. Please remember that the child is not trying to deceive you. It's not meant for malicious. They don't have a malicious intent. Okay, this is just them exploring different ways of being curious about how to use their mind and how to bend reality. Another kind of lie you're going to meet at the early stages is the lie for self-preservation, to avoid consequences. All right, and even if it's just a slight consequence, the child will eventually realize that they can actually tell you something which gets them to not get a consequence. For example, maybe you tell the child, go and have you finished your food? Because you told the child you're going to give them maybe a lollipop after they finish their food. And the child tells you, yes, I finished the food. And the child didn't finish the food. The child is just saying yes because he wants to get what you have to give. Or you ask the child, did you spill this water? Because the child knows you're going to tell them to come and clean up the mess. And the child tells you, no, I didn't spill the water. Because the child doesn't want to get the consequence that comes from that action. So lying at this point can also be for self-preservation, where the child is just saying those things because they want to escape what is supposed to happen or because they want to get something. All right. So that also connects us to manipulative lying. So while they may not have malicious intent, while they might not really intend to, like, the evil lying where somebody would tell a lie about someone and get them into trouble, at the early stages, children they are not yet able to do that. They're not able to tell evil lies that, it's like somebody really sits down and plans a lie, a concrete lie, which is meant to deceive you. At the early stages, they are not able to. Between age 3, 4, for some kids even 5, they are not yet able to do that. Right? So the beginning is really just about the child exploring. It's really just about the child, hitting a milestone where they are just figuring out that they have that ability and they are testing it out. But then remember, the environment in which a child is growing is what will determine how that innocent line evolves, what it becomes, how much it grows, how bad it gets. The environment of the child is what will determine all of that. So it starts off innocent, but unless it is addressed properly, unless the child is in an environment that reinforces honesty or encourages honesty, it will grow. Lies telling is going to grow. So children can still tell manipulative lies even as early as age 3, 4. Like I said earlier, they'll tell you a lie just to get a treat, just to get a snack. They'll tell you a lie to give them something they want. Like you can give them juice, and maybe an auntie at home gives them juice, and then they know that if you know they've drank juice already, and you ask again, have you already had juice? The child will tell you no because the child wants more. So that's a manipulative lie. The child is telling you that lie again. It's not really about you. It's not meant for evil at the early stages. It's not meant for evil. It's just the child realizing that they can manipulate you. They can, bend things in their favor by using their words in a certain way. So the environment in which the child is growing will determine what happens to that innocent line. If the environment is full of pressure, if it's full of fear, if it's full of other liars, then it fuels the habit. It feeds it and it begins to grow from there. So if the environment in which the child is growing is one that encourages lies telling, even in ways that you may not realize it, the habit is going to grow. But then know and expect that every child is going to tell lies at some point. It's going to tell lies at some point, but not every child, develops the habit of lies telling. They're going to tell occasional lies. Even for kids who don't have the habit, children are going to tell occasional lies, just like we've seen for the different reasons why children lie. They're going to tell occasional lies, and mostly beyond the age of innocent lying, lies telling is usually about self-preservation. All right, think about some of the most popular lies in the Bible. When Abraham lied, why did he lie? He lied because of self-preservation. Right? Why did Peter lie against Jesus? He lied because of self-preservation. So why do adults lie? Usually it's for self-preservation. Usually it's because they want to preserve something that they are afraid of losing, maybe their dignity, maybe their integrity, maybe how other people see them. So there are different reasons why people are going to tell lies. So one of the things you should stop telling your kids is that, I've never lied. Parents tell lies even while trying to correct lies. You are going to find parents telling lies, which makes lying really harder to break when you are telling a lie while trying to correct lies telling. Right? So usually kids pick up these habits from their environment. Hi, Mama Agui. Nice to have you here again. All right, so why do children lie? Let's look at that again. Why do children lie? Why do children lie? Children lie, firstly, to avoid punishment. That is the first and foremost reason why you find a child lying. Now, before I even go further into why children lie, let me tell you why it's important for you to always ask the question, why is my child lying to me? All right, because as you go further, you're going to get more of the sense of the fact that lying doesn't just come from nowhere. Every person has a reason why they lie, even adults. If you can understand why adults would, why would somebody lie? Most times when something happens and you're wondering whether somebody has lied to you or not, ask yourself, why would this person lie about this thing? If you can understand why the person would lie, it can also help you to be able to uncover the lie better or even to be able to handle it better. So why do children lie? Children will lie for different reasons. And it's very important that before you address the lie, you try to find the root of the lie. One of the things I teach parents in my upcoming book, Connected on Purpose, I share intensively on why the why approach is crucial for parenting right. When you learn to ask questions before you respond to anything your child does, it's going to help you to always address the behavior from the root. Think about grass when grass is growing, right? If you keep cutting the grass from the surface, it keeps growing again. It's the same thing with behavior. And it's funny how we keep, reacting to behavior the same way, and the behavior keeps coming up or even keeps getting worse. And yet we keep doing the same things like yelling and beating. Parents would beat the child for yelling. I'm sorry, for lying. You beat the child today, tomorrow the child tells a bigger lie. You beat the child, tells a bigger lie. You beat the child. I mean, you just keep doing the same thing without ever stopping to ask, but why is this child lying in the first place? When you answer that question, it's gonna help you to review how you are approaching the lies telling. Because one of the key reasons why children lie is because they are afraid. Think about why you lie in those moments when you lie. Usually it's you're afraid to lose your job, so you lie about the time you arrived at work. You're afraid, to be sanctioned, so you lie about, something you've not done, maybe because the deadline has approached or something like that. You give an excuse. I've had adults come to me, as a medical doctor, asking me to sign documents that will tell their boss that they were sick when they were not, and when you go underneath it, you're going to see that they have reasons why they want to do that. And usually the reasons are very valid to them. So you realize that lies telling, if adults can rationalize it, that's why they keep lying. Then imagine what it's like for children as well. So yes, children too do the same. There is always a reason why your child is lying. If you focus only on the lying and you don't find the why, you are hardly going to be able to address it properly. So the key to handling lies telling the right way starts with you asking, why would this child tell lies about this thing? If the child is afraid and then you keep beating and shouting, then you're not helping. You're going to see that as we go ahead. So why do children lie? Firstly, to avoid punishment. That's the most common reason why a child will lie. Because they know that if they tell you the truth, you will not be able to handle it well, right? So they will lie to avoid the punishment. Imagine someone stands there, your mother has a cane that they've hidden behind the fridge. I don't know, parents usually have those places where they used to hide there. I didn't grow up with beating, so I don't really know. But I know that I had friends who tell me that the new places where my grandparents had a place where they used to hide the cane. Okay, so your child knows that there is a cane that would come out for certain occasions. So I will do everything possible to hide my mistakes. There is no reason why I will expose my mistake to someone if I know that mistake will not be met with grace or compassion, but it will be met with harsh response. So the harsher you are, the more lies you're going to see. So they lie to avoid punishment. They could lie to avoid disappointing you. Parents who are very judgmental, very critical in their approach, who hold very high standards of themselves. Parents who hold themselves on a perfection pedestal. The parents who say, I always took first in class. I was a good girl when I was young. I was always so obedient. There's some stories we tell our children. We don't realize that those stories actually make it difficult for our children to come to us with their failures. When you put yourself on a pedestal of perfection before your kids, what you're instead telling them is the fact that when they mess up, they can't come to you. Parents who never apologize, parents who are never sorry, who are always right, what you're telling your child is, I'm close to perfect, or I'm perfect even, so I don't understand perfection. I don't forgive perfection. So imperfect children will not be able to come to a perfect parent. They will go to their peers who are also imperfect like them. And what kind of advice are they going to get from there? So putting yourself on a pedestal of perfection as the standard of perfection doesn't help you as a parent. That's why being vulnerable is very crucial for having a nurturing, warm relationship with your child. If you're always perfect, if you're never wrong, if you've never apologized to your child, what you're telling your child is that you're always right. Even when you make a mistake, you're still right. Such a child will not want to come to you. This is the kind of child that will lie to you about something that is not necessary just because they want to maintain their image in your eyes. They don't want you to think of them as a bad child because you are so good. You were always good. You have always been good. So you won't get it if I made a mistake. So they could lie to avoid disappointing an authority figure. They don't feel safe. They don't feel safe exposing their weakness, exposing their failure to you. The second reason why a child would lie would be to gain approval, admiration, especially when it's a child that struggles in an aspect. Let me take, for example, a child who struggles academically, right? Maybe they're always last in the class, and then finally they discover that there is an area where they can lie about something and actually get appreciation for once in their life. They're going to lie. Sometimes a child will lie just to get approval from their parents, from their mates. Think about kids who come and lie in school about, my father is so rich, we have this, and they're lying. I'm sure we all had mates like that will come and tell lies about, maybe they'll steal a watch and come and say, look at my father traveled to France and bought this for me. What's the child looking for? Validation, admiration, approval, trying to fit in. So kids will tell lies for reasons like that. Okay, and that also has a reflection on their self-esteem. A child who has very low self-esteem, whose self-esteem desperately needs validation from others, to fill them up, they're going to tell more lies in the area of approval and admiration. That reflects on the child's level of self-esteem. It's also very crucial for you to understand, because if a teacher calls you to school and says your child has been lying about so and so and so, instead of just that, like I said, you don't address lying by just exploding and making noise all over the place, beating the child. The first thing to do is to ask why. When you ask why and you try to understand what could be underneath the lie, it helps you know how to approach it. One of the key things, the key strategy for dealing with lies telling is to understand what drives the lies telling. Is it fear of punishment? Is it fear of disappointing me? Is the child trying to gain approval, trying to get validation? Is the child trying to get admiration? That means something is missing that you need to be able to fill up. All right. Another reason could be to feel in control. Maybe the child is always, at a position of disadvantage, and they for once want to be in control. They want to feel like they're in charge. They will tell lies for reasons like that. All right. They will tell lies just to be able to get more power. Usually this would happen more amongst their peers. They could tell lies to get power. They could lie, maybe during a game, they could lie about something just to be able to, like I said, get an advantage. All right. Now, another reason why a child would lie, especially if it's something the child was not doing, could be modeling. The child is learning it from somewhere. That's another reason. Some children end up telling lies just because if a child is constantly in contact with people who tell a lot of lies, then they could actually pick it up as learned behavior. Most of lying is learned behavior. In fact, lying is a learned behavior. It starts off as part of development, but then it continues as learned behavior. Now, learned behavior means what? The child could learn to lie to keep avoiding punishment when the environment is so harsh. The child could learn to lie because they like the approval that they get from others when they lie about their reality. The child could learn to lie when they are constantly at a disadvantage and they want to constantly be in control, So it becomes a learned behavior where the child now uses it as a coping mechanism, as a skill to help them cope in certain situations. So it now becomes learned behavior. So the environment of a child too can also enhance lie telling. If the child is around friends who are constantly lying and he sees the rewards in quotes, right? Because to them at the moment it looks like a reward. Maybe they see their friend in class lied about their assignment and then they did not beat them, but they told the truth and then they were beaten. They learn that, hey, next time I will not try it. I will better tell a lie as well so that they will not beat me too, So the child could learn it grows as a learned behavior. It starts off developmentally, but then it grows as learned behavior. All right. Now, another thing you want to know about lying, why children would lie, is that children with different personalities would lie for different reasons. Children with different personalities will lie for different reasons. Now, one of the things I teach very passionately during my courses is this aspect of temperament, because I think that your parenting approach changes significantly when you understand the characteristics of each of the temperaments, because they are all very different. Most of the time, I see parents fighting with who their children are, trying to get them to be who they are not. That's a battle that will constantly frustrate you because it's like trying to wash off the spots of a zebra. or the stripes of a zebra, sorry, trying to wash out the stripes of a zebra. You can imagine trying to do that. It's going to frustrate you really, really, really well. Trying to get a child who is one way, for example, the quiet, phlegmatic child, trying to get them to be a talkative. That's a battle that it's going to cause you to sweat blood, and you might still never succeed to do it right. But it will damage the child in the process. So teaching parents about personality traits and how to adapt their parenting to suit each one is very important. But then this is what I want you to know. The different personalities of children will also impact how they tell lies or why they are even telling lies. All right. And it can be very interesting to know. For example, now one of my kids is an extrovert. Extroverts are more concerned about what people, in fact, they are people persons. All right. They like people. They like being around people. They like getting approval. They like validation. They like admiration. So their lives will mostly be in that direction. If they can tell you something about themselves that's not true, that might get you to give them praise or, look at them a little better, they'll tell you a lie for that reason. Now, the other quiet ones, usually are the ones that don't like trouble. Those are the ones that are most likely to lie to avoid punishment. So they would lie. If it takes lying for them to escape negative consequence, they will do it. Even though that's generally true for children, but some personalities will be more inclined to go in one direction than the other. All right, let's look at a few mistakes that parents often make when it comes to lying. I'm sure from what I've shared already, you can already pick up some of those mistakes, what they are. It's very important that you are sensitive so that you don't make some of these mistakes, because these are things that we do that unintentionally fuels the lying, makes it worse. So you're trying to stop the lying, but instead you throw fuel into the fire, and you instead increase the flames of the habit, or you instead encourage it to grow into a habit. And the very first mistake that parents make when it comes to lying, especially when it just begins, is reacting excessively harshly to lying. And why would the parents react harshly usually? Parents will react harshly because they are afraid. Usually it's backed by fear. Hey, you mean this child told me this kind of lie that caused me to do this, and I really believe the child. So there is anger, there is fear. Those are the emotions that drive the parents' harsh reaction. And then they come down on the child with force, either with yelling, with name calling. They hit the child just because they are afraid that, hey, if I don't stop this, my child could grow up to become a professional liar for a living. So that fear, all those thoughts, parents, you have your mind traveling far. You've already gone 20 years ahead. You're seeing your child lying even in their marriage. And because of that, you overreact. You react with excessive punishment. Many parents punish lying in the harshest ways. Lying and stealing. We're going to look at stealing in another session. Many parents punish lying and stealing in the harshest ways possible. I think those are the behaviors that usually get the harshest of punishment. And that's a very big mistake. It's a mistake you do not want to make. All right? You don't want to make that as a mistake, because that reaction, that harsh punishment you're giving, is the reason why the lying will continue. Remember why the reasons we looked at why children lie. Number one was fear. Number one was to avoid punishment. So the harsher your punishment, the more desperate your child becomes to tell you a better lie. So you see that harsh response to lies telling actually creates an environment where your child learns to perfect their lies. Because they're telling themselves, if only I did not forget to cover this side, they will not have caught me. So your child instead becomes focused on telling a better lie next time instead of not telling lies. So the point where until you have proof, the child will not accept. The child will not accept. Why? Because they know what you will do. They know that if I just say the truth, so I will better tell a lie, and there's a chance that they might not catch me and I could go scot-free, than to tell the truth and still face the harsh punishment. Think about it. These are reasons that you gave when you were a child that kept you lying. For most people who grew up in environments where there was a lot of harsh punishment, think about it. Why were you lying to your parents? Even when you knew that, they were going to beat you, you still lied, and they still beat you in the end. So what does that tell you? So you tell the truth, they still punish you for the thing that you did. You don't tell the truth, they still punish you for the lie, and then they punish you now for the thing that you did, and then for the lie. So it's now double punishment for telling the truth. Can you imagine that? Let me take that again. Let me say you took something, or I don't know, you did something that the parent did not want. And then they ask you, did you go to your friend's house without permission? And you say, no, I did not go. I did not go there. I was so and so place the whole time. Then your parent now brings proof to show you that you actually did go there. So now the parent is going to beat you for lying about not going there, and then for going there. So you get double punishment. What does that tell the child? That tells the child that honesty has no reward. So I told the truth and I still got, in fact, I got worse punishment for telling the truth. That tells me that next time I need to tell a better lie. And the only way to escape that punishment is to tell a better lie. So reacting harshly, reacting with harsh punishment when you encounter a lie, especially in those early stages, is the reason why the line keeps growing. All right, is the reason why the line keeps growing. The second mistake parents make when it comes to lie telling is labeling the child as a liar. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't keep calling me liar. You lie too much. You're always lying. You tell too many lies. You lie as you breathe. All those things that parents often say. You lie as you breathe. You lie more than what? I think I forgot all of those phrases. There's some common phrases that parents use when a child tells a lot of lies. You lie as you breathe. You I don't know. Please, if you can remember some, let me hear you in the comments. All right. But then labeling the child does not help. It's a big mistake. Because when you keep calling me a liar, it tells me that no matter what I do, you're always going to see me as a liar. So what's the point making an effort when in the end, nobody's going to believe me anyway? So I might as well just tell a lie. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Besides the power of the word, of the label you're putting on the child, it also affects the child's self-belief. There's something that belief does, even for a person who is still struggling. When you're able to see the person you want your child to become and address that person even while your child is struggling to become, that hope tells your child that there'll be a moment when your child will realize, just because my parent believes that I can't do this, it means I truly can. But when you keep telling the child, you're a liar, you can never tell the truth, liar, even when the child is telling the truth sometimes, and that's your response, you're liar, liar, you're labeling, and labeling, it affects the child's self-belief eventually. But then imagine you being able to address the person you want your child to become, even while your child is still struggling to become. That's empowering. That's empowering. I know that you can be honest. I know that, I'm raising an honest boy. I'm raising an honest girl. Don't say I'm not raising liars. You're a liar. All those labels eventually defeat the child, in their battle to become more honest. Right? The third mistake is your example. Somebody rings the bell. You tell your child, go and tell uncle that I'm not in the house. We call them white lies. But it's a standard. It's a double standard, sadly. So it's a double standard. You can't say, go and tell uncle that I'm not in the house, and then tomorrow you're beating me for telling lies. So finally, what is a lie? Is a lie only the one I tell, or is a lie even the one that you tell? Or you get to a police checkpoint and you lie about something, and your kids know you're lying, and you just continue, you never address it. You never, make your kids know, hey, that thing I did, you just carry on. But then the next day, the child tells a lie, and then you pounce on them. So lying in front of children, small deceptions, things like tell this person I'm not home, tell this person, I don't have this, go and lie about this. All those things are what ultimately pass a message to your child about that behavior. You might think that it's just something small. You might think it's something that, the child will understand I'm just doing it once in a while. No, it reinforces the behavior more than you think, because it tells the child that there are certain circumstances under which, you can just tell a lie. So how will the child be able to decipher between telling the lie to you when they feel it is valid enough and not telling a lie at all? So it sets a double standard, right? And the fourth, I think fourth mistake, is it fourth or fifth mistake? fourth mistake, yeah, that parents make is not creating a safe space for honesty. When you don't create space for honesty should be a flex in your home. It should be something that is valued. So that when I tell parents often that the reason your child misbehaves is more related to what you have not taught than what you think you have taught. Let me take that over again. One of the capital reasons why children behave, besides lacking the skills, is because many parents think that they have taught something. It's more about what you have not taught than what you think you have taught. All right. Let me take, for example, a child who has a problem with lies telling. Many times our focus is it's not good to tell lies. It's not good to tell lies. You're saying so your focus is on the negative. What is the positive behavior that counteracts that negative behavior? What is the emphasis? So you see that what you're focusing on is what is growing. Where is your focus? That is where your emphasis is where there will be growth. It's unintentional, but that's the truth. So you keep emphasizing, lies. We don't tell lies. So it's lie, lie, lie. What is the opposite? You realize that there are so many parents who have never sat down to teach about honesty. If you have a child who tells a lot of lies, one of the things you need to do is to teach about honesty. That must complement every other thing you're doing. If you're not teaching about honesty, if you're not finding ways to emphasize it as a value, then you are already setting yourself up for a lost battle. You're fighting a lost battle. That's why for parents who come on the course, the starting point of any one of my courses is to establish a value system. The parents are guided to establish a value system in their home. For the parents for the 1 year program, we take it further than even the shorter courses because it's a more intensive program. So they go as far as producing a document that is pasted, is hung up on their walls of their home. And you might think that is trivial, but I promise you it's a very powerful exercise. Because you're going to realize that there is so much that you're not teaching, but that you're expecting from your children. How will your child give you something you've not first given to them? It's like going to a bank to make a withdrawal when you never ever showed up to create an account, talk less of make a deposit. You're going to leave that bank empty. So what you are not teaching is more responsible for the misbehaviors you're experiencing than what you think you have taught. So your focus has been, no, stop telling lies. You're lying all the time. Lying is not good. I'm not telling people that tell lies to go to hell. The God does not like lies telling. And lies. You find scriptures that are only focusing on lies, lies, lies. What about what you want to see? That's where your emphasis should be. So it should be more about what you want to see than what you do not want to see. So create a safe space for honesty. Teach it, talk about it, model it, but also let your children know. Find a way to express the fact that honesty is rewarded. If that is your focus, you're going to see a lot of change. Setting unrealistic expectations. All right. Let me give you what an unrealistic expectation is when it comes to lies telling and children. So you buy lollipop, you buy bonbon, and you have a 3-year-old. Even if you have a 5-year, in fact, even if you have a 6-year-old, I will even take it up to 8. You keep that bonbon in a place where your children can not only see it, but they can access it. And then you go and you leave them. They have access to it. They can see it. And then when you come back, one is missing. And then you start asking, who took my bonbon? Who took the bonbon I kept here? You line up everybody. I'm just trying to, create the scenarios that are very common in African homes. You summon everybody. Parents like to summon their children. You summon them in a line and you put yourself like a big bad commissioner of police and you're asking, who took that thing or that money or that whatever I kept here? You kept it in a very visible, accessible place. And you have children who are very impulsive. You kept it there. And your expectation was that nobody should touch that thing. Maybe they were hungry. Maybe you have a child who does not really yet understand, what are the boundaries here. I saw bonbon, I like bonbon, I took bonbon, I ate bonbon. So what's the big deal? And then now they are afraid because of the way you're coming down at them. They're going to lie. They will lie. So first of all, your expectation was unrealistic. All right. Not only did you set the children up to fail, but then you expected more control from a child who does not yet have that capacity to give it. I would not keep something in a place that my 3-year-old can reach if I do not want him to take it. You have to know the children you have. Many parents think that training is just like trapping the child. That's a trap. When you keep setting traps, you're setting your children up to keep failing. Now, there are ways of testing your lesson without necessarily setting traps for your children. Many parents set traps. They will keep something and then they will keep in a way that then they will count it very well and say, let me see this children now. I know that they will come and take it. Then when it happens now, you have a child who is 4, who is still very impulsive. Impulsiveness means that they will act before they think. They don't think first, they act first. So after they have eaten, they remember that, hey, mama could be angry, but they've already eaten it. Now the child is afraid and trying to figure out, what will I tell mama when she comes? All right. So setting unrealistic expectations, pressure, those things pressure kids into dishonesty. Another thing I want you to know here is how you approach a situation, how you ask your kids about lying. Remember I said, don't set traps. Don't set your children up to lie. Many times children will lie because of how we approach them as well. Let me give you an example. You already know I took it. You know that I've done this thing, right? You have the proof. What's the point coming to ask me now as though you don't know yet? That's a trap, right? That's a setup. So you already know that I took the biscuit or I took the bonbon or I did whatever it is that you think I did. You know it, you have the evidence. Maybe everybody even knows it. Why do you come now and start asking me again as if you don't know? That's a setup. That's a trap. All right. So you're setting your child up to lie. And you're having this, in that moment with all that pressure and fear, you're still expecting them to be able to give you honesty, which even adults will struggle in such situations. All right. So think about it. If an adult, Abraham, could lie because he thought his life was in danger, imagine a child, even though they know you know, when you come and ask, they'll start thinking like, oh, maybe they don't know. So there's a chance that I could still lie and escape. So don't set your child up to lie. All right. Don't be a policeman parent. I said this yesterday in yesterday's live session. Don't be a policeman parent. You're not called to be a police officer. Police officers are the ones that when you're in order, the police officer has no business with you. They have no business with you when you're in order. No police officer will have your time if all your things are intact. Police officers are only drawn to places where someone is crossing the line. That's true, right? So don't be a policeman parent. Don't be the kind of parent that is only waiting for your children to fail. Be the kind of parent that helps your children to win, supports them to win by creating an environment that nurtures them to develop the skills that helps them to win. That's what you're called to do. You're not called to be a police officer. All right? So let's look at the do's and the don'ts. Now, I talked about 2 stages of lying. When lying becomes a habit. But before it becomes a habit, that is the time to act. Let's see what you need to do. All right? At the very early stages, I said lying starts as a developmental stage. But then, what do you do then? And what should you avoid doing at that point when your child has just started telling their lies? So the very first thing you want to do is you want to encourage honesty. You want to praise honesty. You want to teach honesty. So make honesty your point of emphasis. If you have a child who is 3 or 4, who is just starting out of the line, this is where to nip it in the bud, as they say. Nip it in the bud. Start by encouraging honesty. So don't put the focus on the lie. Focus on what you want to see at that stage. Focus more on what you want to see. Teach about honesty. Teach your child what honesty, because in teaching honesty, the child will understand what lies telling is. All right. Teach about honesty. Let your child know what happens when they tell the truth and what happens when they tell lies. So that's not the time to react harshly. At the beginning, there's no need for primitive measures at that stage. There's no need for you being harsh. Remember, it's going to make it worse. So encourage honesty by praising, hi Mama Patty, by praising truthful behavior. So praise truthful behavior, encourage honesty as much as you can. The second thing you want to do at the beginning of lies telling, when your child just starts telling lies, is that you want to create a non-judgmental space. Be curious about the lying. Be curious about it. I usually ask my kids, why? Why did you feel the need to lie about this? Just to hear it from their perspective. Because sometimes it may not be what you're thinking. All right. So create a safe space where your child is not afraid to not only admit that they lied. So what I do is that I hold space for honesty. Let me explain what that means. You have to hold space for honesty. How do you do that? By giving your child grace. Now, when you are, this is for a parent who has started on the right foundation. Now, in my home, there's no lies telling. My kids tell lies, but there is no lies telling as a habit. Let me explain what that means. And that's because I hold space for honesty. Let me tell you what holding space for honesty means. Now, a child tells a lie. You know that it is a lie. All right? But then you appeal to the honest person that you're raising, and then you walk away. That's holding space. So you're giving the child a chance, to realize themselves and then come to you because they feel safe to say, Mama, I'm sorry, that was a lie. That was not true. This is what actually happened. Then I'll ask, oh, thank you for telling me the truth. Why did you feel the need to lie about this? That's what a safe environment for honesty looks like. So the child realized that if I go back on the lie, if I decide to be honest, I'm going to meet encouragement and not judgment. So a judgmental environment creating a non-judgmental environment is what you want to do. It's called holding space. Hold space for honesty so that your children can be able to recover even if they should mess up. There are times when I'll come home and something has happened, I'll say, who did this? And everybody's looking at me. I know it's one of them that did it. Most times I'll say, okay, I'll be in my room, all right? You can always meet me there to talk, right? So I'll not put pressure on, the person that did it must tell me now. If you don't tell me, all of you will be in trouble. I don't do that. So usually I will just let them know, okay, I know it's one of you that did it. Maybe you're not comfortable talking to me now. I'll be in the room. When you're ready, I'm there to listen. And you see, usually before I even close my door, somebody's already trying to push to enter. Mama, I'm the one who did it. And usually it might be because they don't want to own up in front of their brothers. They're feeling embarrassed. So holding space like that is very important. It helps children be encouraged. Honesty is hard. It's not always easy. If we can admit these things to ourselves as parents, it will help you to be more empathetic in your approach to your children. It's not easy to tell the truth. There are times when honesty is hard, really hard. When your child feels threatened, when your child feels like their self, the way you see them will be smeared. It's hard sometimes when they feel like others will judge them. Because sometimes even the way we approach it, you come in front of people and you're asking, who did this thing? And you're shouting. The child, even will try to tell you, Mama, it's me. But you're so everywhere. The child knows if I say it now, I'll be embarrassed. So the child can't even be honest, even if they wanted to. The child can't be honest. So holding that space and understanding that sometimes honesty is hard can really help you in your approach, especially at the beginning. In those early stages when kids are still trying to, when they're still trying to figure out whether it's advantageous or not to be honest around you. So it's very important that you create a space, create an environment in your home that is non-judgmental, that helps your child learn that they can trust you with the truth. Next, you want to be able to address lying without labeling the child. So a child who tells a lie at the beginning is not a liar. You can address the lying without labeling the child as a liar. And this is very important. Remember I said earlier that you want to always appeal to the person you want your child to become than to appeal to what they are doing now. You want to keep your focus there on appealing to the person you're raising your child to be and not just who they are struggling, what they're struggling with at the moment. Because sometimes we are so caught in the moment with our children that we are unable to look beyond the present. We say we are parenting, we have faith, but we are unable to look beyond the present. We are so caught in the present that we finally label the child based on what they are doing. So you must be able to express that faith in what you're doing, in who the child is becoming, by addressing the child based on what you are hoping they become. It empowers the child to keep working towards that expectation. Once you already label me a liar, I'm discouraged. So don't label the child with the behavior. Don't condemn the child with the behavior. Next, you want to lead by example, of course. Most times when I would tell the truth, I would often point out to my kids that, hey, I actually felt like lying. Sometimes I'm on out, like, hey, I really felt like lying. And I tell them why I felt that way and how it was hard for me to tell the truth. So I share this experience with my children often. Just let them know that lying can be, it's very easy. It's the easiest thing to do most times. But then, even though the truth is hard, it's important. Okay, you want to teach trust at those early stages. A child 5, 6, 7, you want to teach about trust. Most times, children are unable, in fact, children are unable to see the long-term consequences of their present actions. That's why they are children. The reason why your child's lying upsets you so much, triggers you so much, because you know where it will take them to. You know the kind of person they will become if they don't desist from that behavior. But they don't know it. They don't know it yet. All right. That's why if you can just be patient and compassionate enough to look beneath the surface and see the lack of skill, lack of ability, lack of understanding, you'll be able to now calmly teach your child through storytelling, through different ways to help the child see that when you lie to me like this is how it affects the way how I trust you. It affects me like this. I had a season with my first where my focus was just on trust. I wanted him to understand that if there is one thing you lose when you lie to people, is trust. There's this story. I think you can find the story and read it to your kids. The boy who cried wolf. Look for that story. Somebody write it in the comments. It's a story I believe that every parent should teach their children when you're trying to teach honesty. Look for the story called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. It's a very, very, very simple, interesting, that has powerful lessons about how breaking people's trust affects you through lying. It was about a boy who would, I think he was a shepherd, so I think he would take his sheep to the mountainside, and every time he would shout wolf, wolf, and the villagers would run with their sticks, spears, and to come and help him. And then when they come, he would start laughing and saying, ha ha ha, I deceived you all. You came thinking he was a wolf here and there's none. He will laugh and then they'll be angry and they'll go away. He did that, I think, 2 or 3 times. The day the wolves actually came, he cried, wolf, wolf, wolf. Nobody came because they had lost trust. And that day the wolves ate all of the sheep. It's a very insightful story that kids of all ages can truly be able to understand what trust means and how constant lying can damage that trust and what it will mean for their relationships. All right. So you want to use age-appropriate language to explain to children what truth really is. They don't understand it. A 3-year-old does not really understand what you're saying. That's why storytelling is very powerful. Because even for kids who cannot understand all the complex things you're teaching them about honesty and truth, they'll be able to understand through storytelling. It's a powerful way to help children who are struggling with lies telling. So the don'ts for the early stages of lies telling: avoid reacting with anger or harsh punishment. As much as you can. If it means that you're going to walk away, it's not an emergency, walk away. If the lie really upsets you, just walk away first. Because if not, with your lack of control over your emotions, you will label the child. It's hard not to do it when you're feeling the way you're feeling. You're going to label the child. You're going to possibly punish the child harshly. You're going to give out a consequence that doesn't match the offense. You're going to do something that is exaggerated. And remember, all those harsh stuff we often do because children lie worsens the behavior. It worsens it. If there is one behavior that does not, it needs you as much as possible to stay positive instead of to go in the negative side, is lies telling. One of the approaches that I use with all of my children when it comes to lies telling is to emphasize, is to use positive reinforcement for honesty. So you can address lies telling by focusing more on rewarding, reinforcing honesty than by punishing lies telling. Except in cases where there is a natural consequence you can give that is directly related to the lie the child told. For example, the child lied because he wanted something, he wanted extra, then they don't get it because they told a lie. That's a related consequence. But as much as possible, you want to move away from being punitive, using unrelated stuff to try to sanction lies telling, because that's the reason why the children are lying in the first place. They're afraid of those things that you are now doing. That's hard for many parents, but that is the way out. That's the way out. So don't accuse or set your child up to lie. Those are don'ts. We're talking about the don'ts. Don't accuse or set your child up to lie. Don't set them up to lie. If you know something already, there's no need asking. Just go straight and say, I noticed that you did this. Can you help me understand why? Instead of now you got, for example, come and say, were you the one that took this thing from here? You know the child took it. Don't ask there. Just go straight to the point and say, I noticed that you took this and this and this from here. After I had said nobody should touch it. And then you proceed. So don't put your child up in a position, put the spotlight of them on them, put pressure, and then expect them to still be honest to you in that moment. It's going to be hard. If you have not built the skills, it's going to be really hard for them. So create an environment where you are encouraging honesty, even the way you approach an incident. Think about the environment. There are people around. Privacy might actually help that child tell you the truth. That's what I've noticed with kids as well. Sometimes a child might really want to own up, but because you're doing it so publicly, the child will not own up. The child will not tell you. Why? Embarrassment. They are ashamed of what they did. As much as they might want to be honest with you, but because you're doing it in the wrong place, the child will not be able to own up. So we have to understand these things. We have to understand these things. So avoid making lying a past struggle between you and your child. Imagine where you put the child on the spot and the child now says no. And you're like, but it's you. You're trying to bring all the proof. The child is refusing, you're giving evidence. The child is refusing, you're giving evidence. All that back and forth, it disempowers you. All right? And it takes away from your lesson completely. So when lying has become a habit, quickly, as we round up, when lying has already become a habit, let's say you have a child, I've worked with cases where they have kids of 13, 15 who are professional liars. Children who would, they have become so grounded in it that it's so disheartening. Because these are things that were allowed to grow into a monster. It has become so deeply rooted that it is a nightmare for the parent. But it's still possible. It's still possible to break a habit of lying, but it will take a lot of intentionality from the parent. The first thing you want to do is to build a foundation of trust. One of the things that tells you that your relationship with your child is weak is when there is a repeated lie telling. Repeated. When lies telling grows into a habit, it's one of the first symptoms that there is weak relationship. Think about it, right? It means the person doesn't feel safe with you. So he would rather show you a different side than to show you who they really are. One of the first signs of weak relationship between a parent and their child is repeated lies telling. When it grows into a habit, it's a sign of weak relationship. I know this might be uncomfortable for many parents to hear, but it's the truth. All right? It means that there is a weak relational focus. Your approach most likely overlooks relationship, most likely prioritizes obedience over relationship. And when you do that, you can easily raise liars. You can easily raise hypocrites because your emphasis is more on control, obedience, than it is about relationship. Have you ever wondered why there are some friends that you just tell them the truth? Why? Think about it from that perspective. Because many times as parents, and I address this very well in my upcoming book, where I talk to parents about, this aspect of relationship with their children and the dimensions in which many parents overlook its importance. Now, have you ever wondered why, if you've ever had a friend with whom you felt comfortable sharing everything and anything, ask yourself, why was that? Why are you comfortable with this person? Why are you comfortable even showing your messes to this person? Now, think about you and your child from that perspective. All right? So if you expect your child to come to you with their messes, the ultimate question will be, how have you handled their mess in the past? That's the most important question. The most important question is, how have you handled it in the past? Because it is he who is faithful over little that gains access to more. So if I told you a small lie about a spoon and you punished me harshly, why would I come to you about, a relationship I'm considering? I would lie to you about it because I tested you with a spoon and you failed woefully. So it tells me I can't trust you with more. So building a foundation of trust is the starting point. Getting to earn this child's trust. There is no way around it. There's no other place to start. There's so many parents who would pray and pray and pray and pray about honesty, but then at the slightest mistake, they get the child well beaten. They get the child well beaten. Think about it. Peter was with Jesus, and yet he told a lie. That lack of relationship, that lack of security, the kind of pressures that children go through, until you're able to build that, you're going to struggle with your child being able to open up to you. You're going to struggle with that a lot. So, of course, you need to complement your strategy with prayer. You want the Holy Spirit to convict them. But you also want to complement that with what you are doing, with building trust with the child. You need to build a foundation of trust where this child is able to come to you with their mess ups. And that happens by changing the way you address their mess ups from that point moving forward. So if you're hearing this for the first time and you have a child who's struggling with the habit of lying, that's where you start from. Go back and look at your relationship. If you want to learn about how to relate better with your child, I encourage you to sign up for one of my courses. You're going to learn that. You're going to learn how to create and how to build a safe environment, how to create that safe environment for your children, and how to earn your child's trust in such a way that I've heard kids, there's one fascinating story from one of the courses where a parent's child had lost their wedding ring. I think the child, kids took the ring, was playing around with it, then lost the ring. Of course, could not dare tell the mom. But when the mom started taking the course, the mom started learning how to create a safe environment, build relationship. This child came back to her and was confident enough, comfortable enough to share that mistake. Ma, you remember one time you were looking for your wedding ring, it got missing. I was the one that took it. I took it to school to show my friends, and then it got missing there. Imagine. I think this was a couple of years later. The child was now, hey, okay, I'm now safe. When you create a safe space, your children will come out of hiding. Somebody put that in the comments. When you create a safe environment, your children will come out of hiding. I tell parents often that if your child is always good in your eyes, your environment is not safe. Because any environment that is safe for children, you're going to see their worst parts. They're going to see their worst side. They're going to be comfortable showing you their childishness. And childishness is full of what? Foolishness. So the less foolishness you see, the more unsafe your environment is. It means your child doesn't feel safe being their true self. They're hiding from you. All right. So it starts from building a foundation of trust. You need to identify the pattern and be able to find out why why does this child feel the need to lie? Is it fear? Is it approval? What are they insecure about? Remember those reasons why children lie. Are they afraid of something? Are they afraid? Have I created an environment of fear? Usually that's the case. But it could also be because of approval. It could be because they are trying to, they are copying the behavior. Is it their environment? What is reinforcing this behavior? You want to be able to ask that. You want to be able to ask, what is fueling this habit? What is feeding the habit to grow? If you can cut off what is feeding it while doing other things, you're going to be able to completely uproot the habit over time. Okay, so you want to address any underlying issues. And one of the underlying issues you must pay attention to for bigger kids who have the habit of lying, is that of low self-esteem. Now, kids with low self-esteem usually tell lies that have to do with approval, validation, and attention. They're trying to do it to get attention, trying to get admiration, trying to get approval, because they don't feel like they're good enough. So they feel like they only feel good about themselves when others validate them. That's a sign of low self-esteem. And usually it has to do with the parents' approach as well. Your approach, how you're parenting your children, has a direct impact on their self-esteem. And this conversation is a very important one. Self-esteem is to a person's purpose as almost oxygen is to life. Because when you have low self-esteem, pursuing purpose is hard, because you're constantly going to be moved left and right by what other people think instead of pursuing what it is that you're meant to pursue. It takes a certain amount of grounded self-esteem, robust self-esteem, to pursue purpose. Because people will always want to give their opinions, and a person who has low self-esteem will always try to keep pleasing everybody and will end up losing sight of pursuing their purpose. Self-esteem is important. So sometimes children with different temperaments, remember, they're going to lie for different reasons. So if you have a child who has a habit of lie telling, you want to go to the root of the behavior, understand why, what is feeding this habit. And then you want to go ahead to also set clear rules and consequences. You want to teach and emphasize honesty, but then you also want to let the child know that if they should still choose to, tell lies, then the consequences are going to follow. For example, they should lie about something that has to do with, maybe they lie to go out, then they don't get to go out the next time. So it should be as related as possible, but you want to let them know ahead of time while you are reinforcing honesty, while you are rewarding honesty aggressively, while you are encouraging honesty. One of the things I do with my kids whenever they tell me the truth, for example, who took this thing? Something very important. The other day, someone threw my facial lotion, very expensive. And I asked, and finally the person owned up, Mama, I'm the one to go. What are you doing with it? Wanted to play with the pipette that is inside. And a whole bottle of lotion, phew, just thrown away like that. The first thing I always say is, thank you for telling me the truth. I know that that was hard because you can see Mama is really upset because Mama's lotion was brand new and important to her. And you threw it all away. So I'm honest about how it makes me feel. I appreciate them for the courage to tell me the truth. And then we address the lie. So that's a good place to start. Just by doing that, it helps you also to mellow down. It softens your response. So use role playing and storytelling a lot. Role playing is where you can play out a scenario where somebody lies and what the consequence will be in the long run. Sometimes, again, kids don't understand consequences the way we think they do. A child will not realize that they keep on telling lies. Eventually, people won't trust them. And that could also affect their work. They don't know that. They need you to help them realize those things. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Time really have gone beyond. Normally, we try to keep the sessions within an hour span so that it's not too lengthy for those who are catching a replay. If you need to ask any questions, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask your questions before I shut down the session. So please remember to teach about honesty. You want to teach from God's word. God's word has loads and loads of scriptures that directly address this habit of lies telling, but more importantly, that helps to show the consequence, the benefits of being honest. So you want to teach that. Right now, I have a whole character guide that addresses honesty using different Bible stories and different Bible scriptures to teach kids about, honesty, what it looks like, what it does. The Bible is a very resourceful book when it comes to shaping character. That's what we'll be doing during the holiday course that is coming on. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Those of you who've been here to the very end, again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Subscribing to the channel helps me to keep, to keep doing what I'm doing. It's one of the ways that you can support the work that I do. Please subscribe. Please invite someone else to watch. Share what you've watched with others and encourage them to watch the session themselves. I'd like to know from you in the comments, was this insightful? Did you find anything in this session that was helpful for you? Did you learn anything that you can apply to your current maybe parenting struggles? And have you been refreshed? Thank you so much for being with me to the end. I think there are no questions. Without any, then I'm going to shut down the session, and I look forward to having you here again next Thursday for another insightful live session. We're going to talk about another interesting topic that addresses some aspect of discipline. This month our focus is discipline. We're going to look at different aspects of the approach to discipline that can help you be able to tackle different behaviors that you might encounter with your kids in using a more purposeful approach. Take care, and I'll see you during the next one. Bye.